Welcome, everyone.
All right, Sean, if we want to, I guess we can get started. I'll share my screen and we can start from there.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Jenny. All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this session. By way of introductions, I'm Sean Moore. I am Program Director for our iTHRIV core for pilot and translational clinical studies, and I am supported by Program Manager Jenny Phillips, and soon also by my colleague Medard, who's also on the call. And Kayla Calvo is our financial manager. Hello, Kayla. And then I mentioned Medard here is our research quality manager, who has a lot of experience with our IRB here at UVA. And so we get to benefit a lot from that background and expertise for your projects. So as you know, iTHRIV is our MCATS CTSA award that involves Virginia Tech, Carilion, University of Virginia, and Inova. So what are we? We are part of a CTSA network, which is 60 elite hubs of health systems, academic health systems around the US. In terms of regional CTSA hubs, Children's National has a CTSA, as does VCU. Just in our backyards. CTSAs are NIH awards. So the UVA iTHRIV award is led by Dawn Brown, who's up in the left, and Karen Johnston, who's in the upper right. And of that $23 million budgets over these 4 years, we have $200,000 a year that's provided for pilot funding. And the primary goals of pilot funds are to get research off the ground. The primary goals of the CTSA are to leverage UVA strengths in data science to advance knowledge for patients, collaborative teams, and then training the next generation of clinical and translational research. And then on the left here, we show how iTHRIV interacts with all of these different institutions and groups such as Licensing and Ventures and the Center for Open Science. So next slide, please. So we are looking for pilot and feasibility projects that are about kind of using data to improve the health of patients or the health of communities. We want to help teams transition from small seed grant funding to successful external projects. And so we would love to see sort of projects that sort of need a year of time and an infusion of resources, and can show us how time and resources are going to help them overcome hurdles towards external project support, typically in the form of, say, an NIH grant, perhaps from something like PCORI or another federal agency, and in some cases from private foundations. We would love to see projects that look at innovative uses of data science to improve health. We're particularly interested in research focused on addressing health disparities. And we really emphasize team science, ideally between 2 or more iTHRIV partner institutions. And so we'll talk a little bit about budgets later on in the slide deck. You know, there have been occasions where we funded sort of single center projects, but they tend to have a harder barrier to cross for funding relative to projects that show true collaborations between iTHRIV institutions. And then something new for this year is going to be an interest in supporting projects that don't just address a specific disease or patient condition, but that actually focus on the science of translation. So pilot projects that could increase the speed at which basic or translational findings get applied to the bedside. We'll speak a little bit more about that in this slide here. So this is new. That's part of the request for applications for the next version of CTSA applications, and they want to stimulate thinking from the scientific community and thinking about not just translation or clinical research for a specific condition, but how do we develop generalizable principles that accelerate translational research as you think about sort of the T0, T1, all the way to sort of T5 cycle. So here are some examples that were given. I'm not going to go through these one by one, but we include these in the RFA language so you can look at and see if some of your ideas might be eligible for this. I mean, we're really interested to see what you all may end up coming with. And I think among the CTSA hubs, there is not a lot of clarity exactly as to what the NIH is looking for. But here are, this is we all have access to sort of what's in the RFA, and within these bullets, there's a lot of potential directions that folks could go. So next. Okay, so what is the science of translation? So this is directly from the NCATS website. So we talk about translational cycles, and then how do we develop processes or principles that can accelerate things getting to the bedside sooner. And translational science is sort of improving the process of translation. And some examples on the right here. Now, certainly, certain diseases can provide a proof of principle for why your ideas might accelerate translation, but you want to have it be focused on the science of translation if you're responding to this particular aspect of the RFA. So next slide, please.
Okay, here's where I get to take over. So we're going to talk about the timeline. So as you know, the request for proposals went out June 27th, and today is our information session. Applications will be due by August 29th at 5 p.m. At 5:01, the application system will shut down. So you will not be able to submit a proposal after 5 p.m. on the 29th. October 28th is our anticipated notification of award. Between August and October 28th, we will be reviewing the proposals, scoring the proposals, and then leadership will be voting on which proposals to fund. And those announcements should come out shortly after that, around the 28th of October. Funding start dates will not occur until February 1st. It is a one-year award. We want to remind you of that. And there is an NIH approval process if your project is selected for funding, and that will begin in November. And so we need that lead time before your project starts so that on February 1st, you are able to begin your proposal as planned with all the approvals already in place. Eligibility to apply. Interdisciplinary teams, multi-PIs or co-Is are encouraged. In order to apply, you must be a faculty member at an iTHRIV institution or staff member who is eligible to serve as a PI on an external grant. And so you will need to contact your institution to find out if you meet that eligibility criteria. Multi-institution projects, if you're requesting to be a multi-institution project, must include at least 2 separate iTHRIV institutions. And we are focused on health-related research, translational or clinical. These are the number of proposals we've received over the past couple of years, just to give you an idea, and we have funded between 4 and 5 each year. You will be asked to submit a single PDF. So all of your grant submission will need to be in one single PDF. We will have a 5-page project description, which includes specific aims, impact, research plan, description of team science, plan for community engagement, timeline, and plan for follow-on funding or subsequent research studies that you plan to conduct. Templates and submission links are available on our website, and the submission link to the REDCap survey that you'll be completing to submit your proposal is also on the website. You will also need to include an abstract, which is 500 words or less. We are asking that this abstract be something that community members can understand. We do have reviewers from our community that are non-scientific review your proposals. So please include a paragraph description of your project that a community member can understand. A resource and data sharing plan is separate outside of the 5-page project description. Please include that, as well as NIH formatted budget and budget justifications. If it is a multi-site project to iTHRIV institutions, you will need one budget for each institution. They are separate, a budget and budget justification for each site. NIH style biosketches for key personnel only. A single site request for, if it's just a single site iTHRIV institution, and this investigator can request $25,000 in direct costs. Multi-site iTHRIV institutions, that's 2 iTHRIV institutions or more, can request $50,000 in direct costs. These again are 1-year awards. Consortium agreements are not required between iTHRIV institutions. Currently, all of the iTHRIV institutions have master agreements in place, and so consortium agreements are not required. Publication costs are not permitted on these awards because we were only allowed to provide funding for 1 year. Indirects are also unallowable on these awards, so no indirect costs will be included. We are requesting that every team that submit a proposal is required to conduct a community engagement studio. And I'm going to go over that in detail in just a few minutes, but you need to include $500 in your budget for that community engagement studio. And that is included in the overall cost. So you still can only request $50,000, but $500 must go towards a community engagement studio. NIH formatted budget and budget justifications are required, again, 1 for each site if it's a multi-site project. No cost extensions will not be permitted. We are only allowed to provide funding for that 1 year from February 1st to January 31st of 2024. All funds must be spent by January 31st of 2024. And we cannot allow any extensions, and that is an NIH rule to us. Must follow all NIH funding rules, as this is NIH funded, and this money does come from the NIH. Our proposals will be reviewed through a formal NIH scoring system, similar to what study sections review. We have reviewers from each iTHRIV institution, as well as community members that will review every project. And final funding decisions are ultimately made by our iTHRIV Leadership Council. Our proposals will be evaluated on these 5 criteria. The first one is, does the project involve an innovative approach to an important clinical problem or step in the translational research process? Is the project supported by appropriate preliminary data or evidence from the scientific literature? Does the project employ a team science approach and include personnel with required expertise? Priorities will be given to multi-site collaborative projects. Is the project likely to lead to follow-on funding and or translation to the clinic, or does it solve a challenge to the translational science process? Other requirements include if your project will involve human subjects or animal vertebrate animals, you will be required to submit IRBs or animal care use committee approvals. We strongly encourage you, once you submit your proposal, to begin working on both of those approval processes, as there is also an additional step of getting NIH approval for these projects once the IRB or IAC-UC approvals are obtained, which also takes time, and we want you to be able to begin your project on February 1st. So we strongly encourage that you begin this process after you submit your proposals. Any multi-site non-exempt research project, so if it's 2 or more iTHRIV sites, it's non-exempt research and it will involve human subjects, you must utilize a single IRB. That's an NIH requirement. And projects must be completed in 1 year. Chris Miller, are you on?
I am.
Great. I'm going to introduce Chris Miller to you. She is our iTHRIV partnership manager, and she's going to talk to you about what a community engagement studio is and why we are requiring all of you to have a community engagement studio as part of your proposal.
Okay, hi everyone. A community engagement studio is just a method of getting the public to give input on your research project. So whether it's using a microscope in a lab or looking at cells, or all the way to if you're an MD and you have a clinic, anywhere along that research pathway, it is beneficial to get community input. So if you get this funding, I will help you gather people around the table to have a conversation. Now, these people that are gathered will have something in common with your research topic. The example I always give it, I saw a doctor who was doing a research project on an injectable serum or something, I don't know, that cured knee pain or helped with knee pain. And so everybody around the table for this community engagement studio had knee pain of some kind, whether it was arthritis or an injury or something. They could understand some of the issues that might come up. Anyway, so we will plan this studio. It takes just a few hours to plan, and then they last for about an hour and a half. You show a short presentation, you ask 3 or 4 questions about your project. The community members give their input. You can see there are 2 pictures on the slide. Of course, the one with the table is pre-COVID. We do our studios right now by Zoom. The $500 is to pay for the people, the experts around the table. They're paid $50 each time. So I'm happy to help out. I would recommend that we start our conversation pretty early on in the funding year. So in December, I'm not doing 5 studios back to back to back. And it can also maybe help you with how your project is actually moving forward. So I'm happy to help out. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thanks, Chris. We also want to make you, we'll take questions at the end if that's okay.
Okay.
We also have support services for each of our, at each of our institutions for our biostatistics and research design folks. And that information is here on this slide, and I will send these slides out to those who have registered for this session, but these slides will also be on our website so you can access them. If you need assistance from a biostatistician, please reach to these resources at your institution. Couple of frequently asked questions just to go through that may answer some of your questions that you may have real quickly. First of all, what does community engagement mean? We talk about community engagement in terms of identifying and communicating with stakeholders and end users of the research process. Community could mean a lot of different things depending on what your research is looking at, but basically understanding what the community around you, how they're going to be impacted by the research and engaging with them in that process. Are indirects allowed to be included in the budget as discussed? No. References are not considered part of the 5-page project description, and so those are included after the 5-page project description. The following things are included in the project description: the abstract, resource, data, references are separate, as are, the following things are also separate: the abstract, the resource data sharing plan, the budget justification, and NIH BioSketch. PIs or co-Is, are they required to have effort on the grant? No, and in fact, we discourage PI effort unless it's really needed to move the project forward. These are limited funds, and we assume that the funds for your project will be needed mostly for supplies, support staff, or statistical support. If this is a multi-center project, are separate budget and budget justifications required? And again, the answer is yes, and indirects are not available. Do proposals require prior review prior to submission by the Grants and Contracts Office? So this is a little bit tricky, and so I'm going to explain this once, but additional questions can be asked to Kayla. If the submission is coming from a UVA investigator at the University of Virginia, these are considered internal awards and do not need to be reviewed by the Grants and Contracts Office, but we strongly recommend that your research administrator review and approve prior to submission. For all other institutions, please follow your institution guidelines and policies for submitting a grant. Again, consortium agreements are not needed, and you can contact Kayla Calvo for further clarification on this. Any questions about budgets or agreements or subawards, please check with Kayla, as this is a little bit tricky, and she may have some other thoughts for you after I finish going through all these questions. If this is a multi-institution project, are budgets required to be split evenly between the institutions? And the answer to that is no. The budget should be comparable to the work being done at each site. And question number 8 is, does any information about the community engagement studio have to be included in the research plan? The answer to that is no, because you won't know what your community engagement studio is going to involve, but we do want a brief description of your overall plan for community engagement. And the $500 does need to be included in the budget and budget justification for the community engagement studio. We just had this come up as an issue recently at UVA. We have medical students that do a medical student summer research project, and they are allowed stipends. But unfortunately, at the University of Virginia, stipends are not allowable on an NIH award. So if you have a UVA student that you're planning to use for the summer to do data for, this cannot be paid for on the grant. You would need to pay for them another way. Can I have a collaborator at a non-iTHRIV institution? The answer to that is yes. However, funding cannot be sent to an institution outside of the iTHRIV network. So funding can only go to an iTHRIV network institution, Carilion Clinic, Inova, Virginia Tech, or UVA. You can have a collaborator from a non-iTHRIV institution. Again, no funding can go outside of the iTHRIV institutions. And the final question is, can I budget costs for equipment for the necessary for the project? And the answer to that is yes, but all equipment we strongly encourage you to purchase within the first 6 months of your project to make sure you get use out of the equipment for your project in a timely fashion. And I think that is all of our questions. So I'm going to take questions now. Sean and Kayla and Chris and I will take questions.
Hi, can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
So I'm just wondering, is there any I mean, let me put it this way, is overlapping of science allowed with this funding, given the scope and the latitude of the funding?
I'm sorry,
Is
say it one more
overlapping,
time.
is overlapping of science allowed between this one and, other funding sources?
I can take that one.
Okay.
So, we would want your specific aims to be address something unique. And so we would discourage any overlap with sort of existing funding. And these are NIH awards, right? And so if NIH wouldn't allow sort of overlapping aims on multiple projects, then it would not be appropriate to sort of seek out additional funding for something you already have funded work on. If you've submitted something that's under review, but not yet been funded, I think that you could propose aspects of that via this mechanism. And then, if you were to be funded by NIH or another funder for overlapping work, then we would expect that you kind of contact us so that we could and sort of return the funding so that we could identify other grantees.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question. Is a preclinical animal model suitable for this?
Yes.
Animal model.
Yeah, we have funded some preclinical work on things like cholestasis, seizures.
Okay.
And so, yeah, definitely. Now, we, again, you want to have the animal care and use committees approvals and the vertebrate animal plan as part of your proposals. And then NCATS eventually has to sign off on the animal work. And so you'll want those of a sufficient quality that would, pass NIH review as well. So, but yes, we definitely have funded preclinical model work in the past.
That's great. That is after the approval, right? After approval.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. It's only if you are awarded funding that you would need to get the
That's wonderful.
NIH approval.
Mhm.
Yes.
Thank you for that question.
Do we have an example of data sharing plan? I'm not familiar with the data sharing plan. What kind of, do we have an example of that document we can follow up?
I can look. Yeah, I can look and see if I can identify one and put one on the website that would be an example of a data sharing plan. Sure.
So the timeline is available on the website, right? What time we
Yes.
submit the intention? Okay, I'll
Yes.
find out. Thank you. Thank you.
Proposals are due by August 29th.
August 29 proposal. But before that, do we need to submit intention?
Nope.
No, just August 29 submit.
Yep.
Okay.
Just the proposals must be
That-
submitted by August 29th.
That proposal is a full proposal, including budget, or just the abstract and the 5-page project?
It should include the full list, the 5-page project proposal, the abstract, the bio sketches, the budgets, budget justifications. It should include everything. There is one submission process and that's it. Once it's submitted, it's submitted. So you should include everything in that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And thanks for the questions, Dr. Wong. And in the chat box, I linked to a sample research data sharing plan from NIAID. And so you may find that helpful.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Carroll, did you have
Thank
a
you.
question?
Cool.
No, I have a question. If you can.
Sure.
So what is the goal of the community engagement studio? Is it to? I'm trying to figure out why you're doing it. Is it to inform the investigator at some point in their project, or is it to inform the quote unquote community? I mean, I know you have to have it, but
Yep.
what is the deliverable here?
Yeah,
So can I answer that?
sure.
So it is actually, you're the student. It's to inform you.
Okay.
We think that investigators need to know what community members think about what they are doing. that sometimes their input, not sometimes, I would consider it most of the time, their input strengthens, whether it's an idea that you have or a way you go or how you do it, or there's something about community input that I think is important no matter where you are on the pathway. Yeah.
Okay, so is it more beneficial then to have the studio early in the 1-year funding period or towards the end? I mean,
So it depends on kind of what you think you might benefit most from. Is it a tweaking that you need with how you do your project, or really are you farther along so that you would need help in recruiting people? Like, are you actually gonna be putting needles right in people,
Yeah.
or something like that? So then how would you recruit? Or even if you're even farther along, though, maybe not in this group's case, it would be for just the sharing your information,
Dissemination.
right? Yeah, dissemination of your results, where it's best to do it. Where are people learning from? Where are they really going to hear it?
Yeah, so we help each team define the time frame that will be most beneficial for their community engagement studio, whether that be at the beginning of the project, in the middle, or at the end. And we've done a little bit of everything.
So do you have any sort of a mandatory consultation pre-submission? You do have that, or is it post-submission or post-award?
Post-award.
Okay.
Post-award, we have our initial meeting with the teams, and then we start talking about it at that point in time. And then we meet with, if you are a funded team, you will meet with me frequently.
Yeah.
So.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll
Other
also add
questions?
that the experience of investigators who have participated in these community engagement studios has been uniformly positive, and they tend to come away invigorated after sort of interacting with the end users of research results. And I think it's helping sharpen some of their questions, like thinking about sort of who the advances are meant for.
Right.
And so it is sort of, we have it in there as a requirement, but it's not too onerous, and everyone who's gone through the process has found it to be positive.
Well, I guess if you have a community engagement service actually help with the logistics of setting it up,
Yes.
it becomes much easier for the investigator to participate. Yeah. Okay, great. One quick last question. Are you going to put the slides up on the website? You are.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
the slides will go up on the website, as well as this recording will go up on the website, hopefully this week.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Other questions? I feel like we usually have a lot of budget questions, so don't hesitate to ask those.
Hi, thank you. This was very useful. I was just wondering if you have any examples of awarded proposals that we can look at, so to have an idea to see how well our idea will fit or not with what this program is funding.
Yeah, there should be one on the website.
I couldn't find it, sorry.
No, that's okay. It's at the very bottom. If you scroll all the way to the bottom of the website, it says, here's an example of a successfully funded project. So you can look at that one.
Okay,
that's just one. We have to get permission from teams, and some of our teams aren't ready to share their research. So.
And regarding the biostatistician support, is that something that is going to go through the awarded proposals or not?
So that's support that is available at each site. Most sites have a consult service, and Alicia, you can fully answer this question for me, but most sites have a consult service, which is initially free, but if they're going to provide biostatistical support for your project, there may be that they want to be included in the budget for some of that effort. So you'll need to check with each of site. Alicia, anything to add about that?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. I know that I'm at Virginia Tech, but the same process would be for UVA. If you need assistance with putting together your stat sections or power, you can reach out to any of us. I know that there's a slide with links, and you can request some support there. Also, writing us into that. I know each site has specific, requirements as far as how much to be supported, but I know that we can be very flexible given the amount of the award. So we're here for whatever you need through the application process as well.
Thank you.
Other questions?
If there's no other questions, we really look forward to your proposals. One of the things that's fun about this core is getting familiar with all of the great science that you're all doing across the iTHRIV institutions. And so we're also hopeful that like the process of applying will familiarize you with all the resources that iTHRIV provides for people who are doing clinical and translational research. Things like community engagement studios that you can apply to your work even outside of maybe iTHRIV contexts. So thank you all for joining us today, and please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us on the call with any questions.
Yes, I was going to say Kayla and I will be happy to take your questions about anything about the proposal submission, the budgets, budget justifications, any of those things. So please don't hesitate to reach out. We appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.